Hey everybody, Z Garcia here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the first expansion to Arkham Horror 3rd Edition here. This is Dead of Night. Fantasy Flight Games makes a lot of different kinds of expansions to their games, but one of the most tried and true is the more of everything that was already in the box kind of expansions. And you can bet the Dead of Night here is one of those. You are going to get a lot of more content of what you already had in the core box. Now, I'm not saying that's bad, and in fact, I think it's one of the best kinds of expansions to get early in a game's life cycle, right? This being the first expansion to Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, I expected nothing less. And so this game gives me largely what I expected I was going to get: more investigators, more scenarios, more different kinds of cards, more encounters, more story, ultimately. If that's what you were hoping for, then I think you are going to enjoy this. If not, then maybe you won't, if you were hoping this was going to change the core game. But I might be getting slightly ahead of myself. Let me go ahead and show you just a general overview of what comes in the box, okay? I'm not going to be explaining the game, obviously. You can check out my review of Arkham Horror 3rd Edition if you want to see my thoughts on that game, kind of how it plays. But if you just want to see a little side-by-side comparison of components, let me show you the table just for a minute or two. We'll come on back. I'll tell you what I think of this. So here I've got set up in front of me a lot of the components from the original game over here on this side, and a lot of the components from the expansion over here. The reason I did this is to show you, well, that for one thing, the expansion basically just gives you a lot of the same kinds of things, and it's about a third of the content that was in the original game, right? So for most decks of cards, you are getting about a third of the content added onto it. And many of them you can just shuffle right in, right? So a lot of these items and spells and these, helpers, you can just shuffle that right into the original set. You can shuffle in the newspaper articles. You can do all that. You've got 4 new characters here. You can use them in any scenario you want to. And you've got 2 new scenarios you can play as well. You've also got, and this is one of my favorite things, I'm very happy to have this. It's one of the things it needed the most, I think, and that is encounter cards, okay? The original encounter cards, the decks, there were 8 cards in each. So if you played the game a decent amount, you'd start to see these a lot. You know, you'd be aware of what they were. You'd read the stories already. So they're giving you now the same amount again. There are a new 8 cards. You're going to shuffle in all of them. And I'm only showing you this one, but they have the same thing for the entire deck, all the locations. So in Easttown now, there are 16 cards of every location, 8 new and 8 from the original set. All right, so that's great. I'm really happy about that. A lot more variety and replayability right there. But this is just, again, to show you that this is that kind of expansion. The more of everything you already had expansion. The scenarios are going to be somewhat in line with the original ones. They're kind of lengthy, interesting, some cool new thematic ideas with the gangsters in town and things like that. And they are going to utilize the things that 3rd edition Arkham Horror does particularly well, I think. And that is having the map be modular and having the story be driven by a deck of cards that you can, add cards to the index, to the codex, or remove cards from the codex, etc. So there you go, new monsters, all of that stuff. They also give you a new card dispenser here. I know some people were not big fans of the original dispenser here, but they give you one for the monsters now, so there you go. It's a nice little touch, definitely not something you need. I know plenty of people don't play with these, but it comes in there. So that's pretty much it. I'm not going to go into detail as to what every one thing does. It's just new abilities for the most part. But this should serve as a side-by-side comparison as to what the actual components, the amount of them, and the types looks like for the expansion. So let's just go ahead and go back up top. Let me give you some final thoughts. Talk a lot about the expansion a little bit more and who I think it might be good for. Here we go. All right, there we go. So that's a Dead of Night and the things that come in there. No new map tiles, none of that stuff, okay? They're sticking with what came in the core box for that. But what is in there is great, and that's, like I said in the intro, pretty much what I wanted from an expansion. More scenarios, yeah, but also more content. Some of those decks are pretty thin out of the core box, right? So we need more of that stuff, and this game delivers that. So this is largely not that interesting, my breakdown here, but I'll do it anyway, okay? So themes, the same classic spooky. It can drag out a little bit at times, but it gives you that same rich, Cthulhu mythos vibe. The aesthetics here are great. Everything folds right into the original core box. Everything looks good together. Color mismatch is kept to a minimum. There's a little bit of a mismatch between the old and the new newspaper cards here. This is, let's see, this is a new one. This is an old one. So as you can see, it's a little more rich. That color is more washed out. Minor, really, really minor stuff. Doesn't bother me. Those things kind of normally do bother me, but this is not so bad. So it's pretty good. All right. The replay value here is ultimately why you get this, right? You get this for the replay value. And obviously I'm giving that a thumbs up, okay? Like I said, I think one of the best things is this, having the double, the amount of the encounter cards. I think that's fantastic. But of course, they give you a whole bunch of new index cards for the 2 new scenarios, bunch of new companions and monsters and all of that stuff. New characters are fine. None of them are big-time standouts for me. I didn't find any of these to be fantastic for me, but they're good, right? They're okay. And the 2 new scenarios are neat. I like that. And I like that they feature they sort of highlight what the strength of what I think is in the 3rd core set here. 3rd edition Arkham Horror is certainly different from 2nd edition, okay, which is what I can compare it to. There's a lot fewer tokens on the map. It's less sprawling. It's tighter. Not necessarily shorter all the time, which is one of my sticking points with the original game, but it is more concentrated. And the things they did that were new to it was modular map and having that codex system that Fantasy Flight took from their own Fallout game, right? This game uses that. And these scenarios focus on those things, manipulating those things, the map, the codex, pulling things in and out. And so that's good. They're turning their attention towards the strengths of this system. So I like that. I like these scenarios. I think they're good. Though, again, they can be long. So that's replay value. The game arc is fine. The game does have its lulls. I think that was, again, not a problem with this expansion. It's a problem with the core set. I think there are sometimes stretches of lackluster moments, right? Where there is not a lot of tension, where there's one monster roaming, you can avoid him, forget him. Until you can finally get something done, and then, it kind of picks up again. Game's about 3 hours. That's what you can expect from each scenario. So, yeah, I think it can drag a little bit. Now, the ease of play is good. Like I said, I think 3rd edition Arkham Horror is pretty straightforward. So I got no issues with the ease of play. And this is well explained, self-explanatory for the most part. I like the new condition. The wanted condition is a new one. Kind of like a Dark Pact. So that's neat. I enjoy that. And then lastly, tactics, strategy, and luck. This also gets a middling score because there isn't really anything new. This is that kind of expansion. The more of everything you are already aware of expansion. There is no new choice now where suddenly, for folks that did not find the original core game very strategic, there is nothing here that's going to change your mind, okay? And I still have a problem with a lot of these actions being once per turn actions. You just cannot attack twice in the same turn. Still blows my mind, that choice. But I think I get it, but it still feels wrong. And this doesn't change that, of course. This is not going to, modify the core game that much. So be aware of that. So having said all that, if you are someone who very simply enjoys Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, and you want more content, this is for you. You're going to get more content. It's a good amount of new content. I enjoy it. I think they did a good job. It doesn't feel like they're, reinventing the wheel, but it doesn't feel like they skimped out on new cards, right? So good. If you're someone who wasn't particularly a big fan of the original core set, I say original as in the main release, if you were hoping this was going to mix it up, you're not really going to get that. This is just more of the same. So this is probably not for you. But having said that, I rate the original core set a 7 out of 10. I think it's a good game. And the expansion here is going to get the same score from me. So this is going to get a 7 out of 10, which is a seal of approval. I like it. I'm glad I have it. I always mix it all up in there and just see the same things with less frequency. So it's nice to have that variety built right in now. So there you go, everybody. That is it. That is our expansion, Dead of Night, for Arkham Horror 3rd Edition here. Seal of approval, once again. Thanks for checking this out with me, everybody. I'm Z Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.